So, this was a case that happened last week that I've been waiting until now to talk about, because I wanted to see where all the chips would fall on this, as I had a pretty good idea of what was going on, but I wanted to be sure, and now, oh hell yes, I absolutely am. So, there was a report that Netease, the developers and owners behind Marvel Rivals, aside for the IP, etc., laid off their Seattle team working on the hit game Marvel Rivals. Well, why would they do that? That seems silly, right? Marvel Rivals is doing great, fantastic. It's become a pop cultural movement. It's been popping off like mad, basically completely and utterly replacing Overwatch in, well, almost all of the relevant cultural spheres. So why were they laying off people? Well, there might be a reason. Why would China lay off a studio located in Seattle? Oh, right. Yes. Yes. There are reasons why the Chinese may wish to withdraw from such a, colorful city, shall we say. But that was merely just a suspicion I had at the time. This has, however, largely been confirmed thereafter, as the Marvel Rivals layoffs in Seattle had only one part of a larger drawback from Netease, which seems strange. Netease is doing really good now, and in fact, after the release of Black Myth Wukong and the success of Marvel Rivals, investment in gaming in China has skyrocketed. Why could they possibly withdraw now? Especially as they themselves say that they're investing even more in continuing to develop Marvel Rivals. Well, the reason behind that is the studios being targeted, which are exclusively Western and Japanese companies, which as far as the Chinese are concerned, Japan is basically just America but smaller. This is very easy to understand when you bear in mind what exactly Netease is. So, firstly, Netease, of course, were very hesitant to pay royalties to Disney. They viewed Disney as a direct competitor, but why? Disney isn't making all that many video games these days, and certainly no Overwatch competitors. Why would Netease be worried about paying them royalties? See, here's the thing. Netease has that clause in a lot of different gaming companies, either outright owning them, like Riot Games for example, or owning substantial slices like Epic. This is due to the fact that for the last 10-20 years now, China has in essence been waging a cultural war against the West. America is, for better or worse, the cultural hegemon of the modern age, and China, recognizing the power inherent in being able to be the primary producer of entertainment, obviously wishes to compete. But China didn't think it actually could compete. It didn't believe it really had a chance, particularly not against giants like Disney, who have practically formed the childhood of damn near every single person living in the West today. Which is why they're immediately somewhat hesitant about this. Do we really want to back up our rivals? The people competing with us for cultural capital? That doesn't sound like a wise move, but eventually they shrugged and then, okay, let's do it. And Marvel Rivals was a relatively minor investment for them, supposed to be almost a pump and dump kind of thing, where they'd put it out in the market, it'd do a little bit okay, and that'd pretty much be it. Because after all, every other superhero effort had failed. Marvel wasn't monetizing their IP very well at all, particularly not in the video game space, and according to Blizzard and Overwatch, etc., it was a massively oversaturated market that just didn't have space for anyone else, and boom. Why? Attractive characters. Literally, it is actually unironically that straight up simple. Marvel Rivals has attractive characters. Overwatch does not. Western game companies in general do not have attractive characters anymore, and China couldn't believe this. No, it can't be that easy. We're waging a cultural war here in essence. We've announced this loud and clear for years and years now. Everybody knows what's going on. Surely, come on, you know. And, well, yes, but, the people in power didn't. Our entertainment industry didn't. Our entire entertainment industry was busy chasing after DEI and wokest nonsense, actively cutting its own legs off at the knees, hobbling itself, even as China finally learned to walk and then eventually run in the gaming space, as its own, major games industry is very, very, very new, at least in comparison to the stuff over here. And even then, their games industry was focused around mobile titles, cash app grindy games, clickers in essence. They didn't have much experience or any at all at making big name titles like Marvel Rivals. They hadn't even really tried much. Black Myth Wukong surprised everybody, and its success was also largely due to a rather clever marketing ploy. Now, I do know as well that a lot of people accusing China of basically pushing the DEI nonsense into the West, and there is an element of truth to that, as well as good old-fashioned Soviet propaganda, but China had no idea. Unironically, China had no idea how weak the West was. They didn't understand. They couldn't believe it. That's why, again, they were hesitant about giving Disney, who they viewed to be their cultural rival, any money. They thought that Western entertainment was so entrenched, so firm, so solid, with titans like DC and Marvel and Disney, that it would take them another 20, 30 years even just to crack the shell, which is exactly why they were buying up other companies and cultural icons. Riot Games, for example, was their attempt to go, okay, there's no way we beat the West at this. Not yet, not for a decade or two more, but we can buy out one of their major entertainment names like League of Legends. And that has since, of course, spawned television series, which all in accordance to Tencent's plan, be you assured. But they still didn't think they really had a shot. I mean, after all, that was simply just like a Western game studio doing their thing. Or Grinding Gears Games as well, which I think is on the list here. There we go, Path of Exile. Now, I think actually they own 100% rather than 80% these days, but again, Western developer, or New Zealand in this case, doing their thing. But Marvel Rivals proved to China that that wasn't the case. Literally all they needed to do was make cool characters, was to make hot characters, was to open themselves up to modding and various usage on Rule 34 sites, and suddenly their game would be everywhere. And there is even a tiny bit of pushback against this now, as the West is beginning to kind of wake up a little bit. For example, there was a mention from one of the Marvel heads a little while ago that they didn't want to do anything more with Galactica's sister, whose name escapes me right now, because he didn't like what her presence and her existence did to the character of Galactus. Really? Really now? You care about the integrity of your characters all of a sudden? Shut the fuck up. No, you don't. I mean, even now, you're releasing a Gwenpool. Not even the funny kind, the actually massacry, dark, butchery, murdery Gwen. You don't care about your characters. You haven't done that for a very long time. That's largely why a Chinese company is able to better utilize them than you are. And yet now suddenly you're like, oh wow, this is a flagship character. Shit. Have we sold our entire cultural legacy down the river without even realizing? Yep, pretty much. Even if the West in its entirety now, from video games to cartoons to entertainment, animations, superheroes, etc., if all of it took a complete 180 and started going back to the basics of attempting to please their customers and build up what the customer wants at this point, which is their classic heroes back, it's too late. That's going to take 5-6 years at the very least, and to overcome the inherent skepticism of an audience that has been burned one too many times, probably a decade or two plus. Meanwhile, China is investing everything they can right now into games, into entertainment, into movies, as they now have the highest grossing animated movie ever. China had no idea. And now that they are actually smelling for the first time the blood that has been gushing into the water from the open gut wound of Western culture for 20 years, China ain't gonna be wasting no more time on this. They are going to go for the jugular. And when they do, well, the problem is, there's not even a good answer to it. What, you're gonna argue that we should boycott the Chinese games when they're the only ones making something good? In favor of what? More Western DEI-infected slop? Doesn't that defeat the entire point of fighting against wokeism? If we want to get rid of wokeism, we first need to punish the studios producing woke garbage, and then encourage people producing based stuff. And the only ones doing that are China. So, pick your poison, I guess, and for the time being, I still prefer the Chinese poison. At the very least, that is an enemy that we can still defeat with, other alternative means in the not too distant future. Whereas wokeism, well, China can be, liberated. Whereas we'll have a harder time taking care of what's already so fully entrenched itself in our own nations. Yeah. In this case, the lesser of two evils, unironically, as ridiculous as it may seem, is actually China for the time being. How long that's going to last, well, that is a question that we are going to have to return to frequently, in all due likelihood, as you can't let it go too far either, but again, one of these enemies can be defeated conventionally, the other one requires a very different approach. And again, I have a very hard time arguing that anyone should give up on good entertainment right now. It's a difficult argument to make. Hey, this good thing came out. Hey, you know what? They made an animated movie that's really good. They made a game that's really good. You shouldn't play it though. Why? Well, because we need to protect Western culture. Modern Western culture. Modern, mind you. That's a difficult argument to make, I tell you. Now, if we could go back to old school Western culture, suddenly we've got an advantage again. If we can return to the days where we could look at countries like China and Russia and unironically go, you are tyrannical dictatorship that suppress the free speech of your people, without immediately feeling a bit of a stab in the back of our spines, then that's a different story. But first, we have to get back there. There's a lot of work to be done at home before we can afford to start looking abroad, I'm afraid. Anywho, this has been a nice and depressing thing, as the war is not over anytime soon. We are going to have to fight this conflict for a while longer. First, against an enemy that is quite familiar to us, and secondly, against one that'll be a little bit more novel. Hopefully not another novel strain of a virus, mind you. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.